Louis Live. For those of you who've attended Venture Cafe in the past, we believe innovation happens in these interesting side discussions. These odd but interesting and curious questions and discussions that help us connect the dots that we never saw before, that we didn't know were there. And generally from those interesting conversations, that's where we see those innovations, those unexpected collaborations, and even new business formation that comes from things that seem, almost kind of just harmless or innocuous or, not even related to business. So we love having these side discussions. So I'm really excited that today we're going to have with us Lauren Augustine, who's the curator of herpetology at the St. Louis Zoo. So if you saw the BBC or the New York Times articles about this virgin birth python, we were just kind of like, what could this possibly be about? It was neat to see St. Louis in the news for something. I don't know if it's considered good news, but it was interesting news for sure. Maybe it is good news. But we thought, all right, let's call up the zoo. Let's see what's going on. And we were able to get in touch with Lauren, and we're really excited to have her here. Lauren, before I kick us off, I want to just let everybody know, for those who are attending, that we will be opening up to some questions. We'll take a handful of questions from the audience. The way this will work is that we're actually going to have you text your question to us. And I'm going to put the number up here on the screen. So text this number, 314-329-8561. We'll review the questions, and if your question gets selected, we'll bring you live on to ask Lauren a question directly about this python. So make sure you text your questions there. All right. So let's just jump in. So Lauren, first of all, welcome. I know you're very busy right now, so thank you for making time today.
No, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about our amazing animals.
So really quick, so you're the curator of herpetology at the zoo. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And what does that entail? Like just the brief synopsis of what you do day to day.
So basically, my job entails overseeing the maintenance of the diverse collection of reptiles and amphibians that we keep at the zoo, as well as our conservation programs. So we have the Wild Care Institute, where we work with conservation programs internationally. So the Herp Department has the Ron Gellner Center for Hellbender Conservation here in St. Louis, as well as programs in Ecuador, Cuba, and Asia, and Armenia.
All right. Quite a breadth there. Okay. So can you explain to us like what's happening? So it's been kind of referred to probably colloquially as this virgin birth python. What does that mean? And is that accurate? Can you explain some of the science behind what's happening here?
Sure. So parthenogenesis is sometimes referred to as virgin birth. So there are species, mostly lizards, that have obligate parthenogenesis, which basically are all female populations having all female offspring. And basically it's for rapid population growth. This snake is not that case. This snake is actually a case of facultative parthenogenesis, which is when a snake that can reproduce sexually also can reproduce asexually, so without a mate. So we call that facultative parthenogenesis. And in this case, the snake could have all male or all female offspring. And it is thought that these older lineages of snakes, such as pythons, would have all female offspring as well. So that's something we'll discover in the genetic testing as well. Okay, very interesting.
So what does it, so this is not something that's entirely, or is it rare, I guess, or is this something that you said it sounds like it happens, it's not that rare?
It's not frequently documented. It's becoming more and more popular. It's usually found in snakes in human care or animals in human care because we're able to document it and get the testing done to prove that it is facultative parthenogenesis as opposed to sperm storage. And it is rare, but it's becoming more and more frequently documented thanks to institutions like the St. Louis Zoo.
Got it. And then you mentioned that there's some circumstances with their sperm storage where they can hold up that. I guess they hold it inside for several years. What does that mean?
So most snakes hold sperm like over a winter. So a snake will breed and then it will have sperm storage through the cool period, through the winter, come out in the spring with babies. And so that they consider that sperm storage. But there is a documented case of up to, I believe, 7 years is the longest documented case of sperm storage in a snake. So we know reptiles can store sperm. We don't know for how long in each individual species or taxa. So it's something that's still under investigation and something that's very interesting and obviously plays a major role in some of our breeding programs if animals are storing sperm.
And so I'm just so curious about this. So let me go off script here for a second and just ask about that. So what I can see like the evolutionary like advantage of being able to hold over the winter, but what prompted it to last like 7 years? I know that's probably an edge case, but what's that about?
So I think a lot of it has to do with resources and kind of your environment. So if you're in a very harsh environment or where resources are scarce or individuals are scarce, these kind of things can be very valuable in terms of population growth.
Got it. Okay. So, so what happens next then? I know you mentioned some testing. So the next step is, I guess there is some testing currently happening. Is that right? To determine what that circumstance is?
Not yet. We're waiting. Yep. We're going to wait so we still have 3 eggs that are incubating. We hope to have hatchlings here in a week or 2. And then once we have hatchlings on the ground and they are healthy and go through their first shed cycle, we'll likely collect some samples and send them out for genetic testing with a sample from the female.
Got it. Okay. And so how long will this process take to kind of figure out what's going on, when we might have some answers?
So it'll probably take a couple months just for us to get all the samples out to the lab and then for the lab work to get completed and the results to come out. So I would say a couple months. COVID slows everything down though too. So got to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Is there any implications for just, St. Louis in general? Is this an interesting discovery? Is it meaningful in a way that puts St. Louis on the map, or what does it mean, I guess, to have this in our backyard here?
Yeah, I think this is a phenomenal example of the things about animals that we can learn in zoological institutions that really we're not capable of learning in wild specimens. And it tells us a lot about their natural history and their evolution. So I think it's really important for zoos to continue to collect this kind of information and data on our animals. And it's one of the great benefits of having them at our institution. But this will also be published, hopefully, in some scientific literature and add to kind of what we know about pythons as well as parthenogenesis or sperm storage. I suppose I should say both, since we don't know what it truly is at this point. So yeah, it's very exciting. And adding to the scientific literature is a really important part of our mission at the zoo.
Got it. All right. So we are going to turn it over to some questions. In the meantime here, I wanted to see what basically what are some of the common questions you're being asked right now, just in general? I'm sure you mentioned before we jumped on here live that some friends were sharing links that they had seen about this. What's the common thing that's the common thread right now?
So lots of people are just wondering, like, how is this possible? It's amazing. I think what's truly amazing is it's cool and it's awesome that this is parthenogenesis, if it is, or sperm storage. But we knew that snakes can store sperm, and we know that pythons can have parthenogenesis. What's truly amazing to me is that this is a very old snake. And we know that reproductive success wanes in all species with age. So very young animals and very old animals tend to have lower reproductive success. So just the fact that this snake is 61 years old and reproducing, definitely producing viable eggs, hopefully producing viable offspring, tells us a lot about how we can be managing these species for the long term and how long we can expect them to breed. If this was an endangered species, or we can kind of use this information for closely related species that are endangered and that we do have in breeding programs, we can kind of plan for their reproductive output for the year. Now, this is obviously a one-off, but we do keep track of those kind of things. The earliest age of reproduction, the last age of reproduction in our breeding plans and in our management of our species. So that's one of the really cool things about it is her age.
Cool. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you very much. We have some questions that are getting held up in a technical issue here. So I think what we're going to try and do is we are going to, I guess at this point, probably wrap it up here. So I do want to thank you so much for spending time. I know, like you said earlier, you guys are really busy right now, and appreciate you jumping on here to explain what's happening right now and with this python and in St. Louis. It's really cool to hear the different things that are happening in our own backyard. So thanks again.
No, thank you so much. It's very exciting, and we're excited to talk about it and share the information because we're pretty proud.
Yeah, so congratulations to you and the team.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, take care now.
Have a good afternoon.